I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Mayor, if you want to start, or you want me to start?
Council, thank you for calling this emergency meeting. We're here today to talk about water conservation, and I'm asking you to enact Phase 3 of the Water Conservation Ordinance. Right now, what's happening is that our water tanks are not having time to recover. We're pulling down so much water. It's not an issue of water supply. It is an issue of the tanks having time to recover. And what that's causing is low water pressure and also a lot of brown water. So, again, today, the biggest culprit we have is irrigation and also just the weather patterns that we're seeing. We're seeing some excessive heat and a drought, basically a drought for us, because we're so used to getting 2-3 inches of rain this time of year every day. I shouldn't say every day, but at least 2 or 3 inches in the week for rainfall, and we're just not seeing that right now. And again, when you wake up in the mornings and your heat index is already at 99, we're just seeing that extreme weather pattern. So I am asking you to enact Phase 3 until we get to a point where our tanks are recovering and we're not seeing the issues that we're seeing currently.
So just obviously to reiterate and to make sure I understand it is, we are not, it's not a low supply issue. It's just that our tanks are not able to fill up, which is affecting obviously the amount of pressure or the water pressure provided to our customers.
Correct.
What can we do, not just temporarily, but what, do we need another tank? Do we need, in planning for this, since we've been working so much on the water supply,
Right.
Another additional wells, transmission lines, all that. So it seems like we're okay on supply and transmission. It's just retention and pressure right now is the
Correct.
problem.
I do think, yes, and I do think that we are going to need an additional water tank. Daryl is behind me. He can also address that. But right now, we're working on those additional wells to be able to get the extra 2 million gallons of water. I do think that you'll see those come online the first quarter of the year, hopefully March, spring sometime. Get that well online. We also have a test well, and we've identified another parcel where we're going to start doing some preliminary drilling to see if we can get to, some good water out of some aquifers on an additional piece of land. So I think we're doing the things that we need to do to make sure we have the increased supply that we need. But yes, we will need the storage capacity. So I do think that in the coming year or years, we're going to hear about another water tank.
Council, I know we'll probably have some discussion on this. Let me read the resolution, and then whether we have a motion or not. Whereas the City of Fairhope adopted ordinance number 1682, an ordinance to establish an emergency water conservation plan for the City of Fairhope for customers or persons who use the City of Fairhope water system. And whereas the City Council, due to the emergency circumstances with the water consumption by users of the City of Fairhope water system, requiring immediate action to avoid further strain on our infrastructure and to protect health, safety, and welfare of these users, is desirous on declaring a water emergency pursuant to ordinance number 1682, and to authorize the mayor to implement any and all of the phases: Phase 1, water alert; Phase 2, water warning; and Phase 3, water emergency. And whereas Phase 1, the water alert phase, has been in effect, which is a voluntary phase to limit the amount of water that is absolutely necessary for health, businesses, and outdoor use. However, the water demand is still rising daily. And whereas Phase 2 and Phase 3 require the City Council to declare an emergency before the mayor can implement these mandatory phases. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the governing body of the City of Fairhope, Alabama, while in regular session on August 7th, 2023 as follows. The City Council of the City of Fairhope hereby officially declares a water emergency pursuant to ordinance number 1682, and authorizes the mayor to implement any and all of the phases: Phase 1, water alert; Phase 2, water warning; and Phase 3, water emergency, to avoid further strain on our infrastructure and to protect health, safety, and welfare of the City of Fairhope water system users. All right, council, the first thing is, do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
All right. So discussion.
I want to discuss the do's and don'ts. I mean, I understand everything's an emergency here, and phase 2 is phase 3, but I don't believe anybody understands what that is.
Well, and that would be one of the things that I'm assuming we would issue when we issue something from the city outside of this meeting on what exactly phase 2 and/or phase 3 require.
Correct. I will tell you that the biggest culprit we have to our water capacity is irrigation. No matter how much we continue to preach to people to please irrigate overnight, coming into work this morning and going to the pickleball courts, I passed 4 different places that were running their irrigation at 8 o'clock this morning. I did send code enforcement out to visit those people and tell them that we are under, the voluntary phase, and ask them to please irrigate overnight. People just aren't paying attention. I mean, we've used all outlets we can for communication, whether it's through HOAs, social media, we've been on the TV. I just don't know what to do other than, enact this phase 3, and again, this can mean fines up to $500. We will be sending PD out and code enforcement, along with other city representatives, to, if we see people irrigating, to ask them to stop, and if they don't, then again there can be other penalties. The other thing I just want people to know, this does not include wells. If you have a well, I know most of the golf courses, people will call me. People have called me and said, hey, Quail Creek's irrigating. Will they irrigate from the ponds? The same thing at Rock Creek. Those areas are not pulling on our water system. So, again, and we've had a lot of comments on social media, we'll stop building. It's not really about the building. It's more about the extreme weather patterns that we're seeing, to be honest, and irrigation. If people would just stop irrigating and realize their grass does not have to be watered every day to the extent that your water's running down the gutter. Use what you need. We're not asking you to do anything that other places don't ask other folks to do. I mean, unfortunately, people just want nice lawns, and I get that. I would love for my grass not to be dying. But again, the irrigation is the biggest culprit right now.
Jack?
Yeah, I was actually, I can wait. I mean, I'm willing to vote on this now, and then I want to have some more discussion maybe. But I would, and maybe, Mayor, if you want to, just kind of define once again, what's brought us to this point, the trigger points that we've reached, how many gallons per day and how many consecutive days, because after our vote, I want to have just a short discussion on some of that maybe.
Right. If we reach, I actually have my phone over there that had the numbers on it. If we reach an 80% capacity over 7 consecutive days, that enacts the voluntary phase. 90% over 7 consecutive days enacts the second phase, which is mandatory. The third phase is when you reach 100% capacity. And we are teetering right there on the 100% capacity. What has not thrown us into the phase 3 is that it is, we're finding one day that's an anomaly, to be honest, where you pull down, 8.1 million gallons versus, just 8.2. So, and that's actually happened for the past 2 weeks.
And that's what I want to talk about after this vote.
Yeah, there's
Maybe
just
talk about tweaking that
right.
ordinance slightly.
And we have talked about doing that.
7
Yeah.
out of 10,
Right.
and then if you have 7 in a row, it
Correct.
does, or if you have 7 out of 10,
It doesn't matter. I mean, we're seeing, there was 2 days, I think, out of the past 14 days where we haven't hit that at least 90% capacity. It's been closer to 100% capacity, like 8.7 or 8.9. And it's, again, just not allowing those tanks to recover and build the storage back up. So we're, this is how we got to where we are. And we've been, entrusting that the people will do the things that they need to do, that we're asking them to do, and it's just not happening.
Mayor, would you repeat one more time? It was 80% for
7 consecutive days.
I mean, 90%?
90% capacity for 7 consecutive days.
That triggers the emergency.
That triggers the phase 3. And we knew even before that we were going to need to tweak those numbers. We probably also need to go back and look at the fines, because you can, you have to take people to court, and it's a fine of up to $500, but we need to put a little bit more teeth to the
But
ordinance as
90
well.
just triggers phase 2, right?
It does,
Yeah,
just
so
phase 2.
3 is 100%.
And when you again, phase 3 is 100%, but again, even staff is telling us you don't need to wait
No.
that long to get to that phase 3, because that's what's pulling down on our system.
Right. And we're learning. It's
Yeah.
still a new ordinance. I
It
think we
is
could
2 years
tweak it
old,
a little bit.
2.5 years old. And again, we have not seen these kind of extreme weather patterns. I mean, we are one of the rainiest places in the United States. I mean, we typically see close to 70 inches of rain a year, and we're just not seeing that right now. And again, we haven't seen this excessive of heat in, I would say, 2 to 3 years, if not longer. We have not seen heat like this for this extended period of time. The other thing I did want to mention, just for those folks who are concerned about it, I have been in conversation with the fire chief just to make sure we don't have any issues with, in case of a fire here in our area. He assured me that we do not. We've never gotten to that point. We do have, resources that we can pull in if necessary. So I don't want people to think that we're going to have those type of issues. And again, it's not an issue of supply. It's an issue right now of low water pressure and brown water. And I really think 48 hours, if we can get people to stop irrigating, that we can refill the reserves in those tanks.
Call the question.
All right. All right, council, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion before we vote? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, motion carries. Council, following up on what Councilman Burrell said, do we want to have any discussion right now about maybe how to implement this or when this sort of emergency is triggered moving forward?
Yeah, and I don't know that we, have to decide today, but I'll just throw numbers out. The 80%, 7 out of 10 days, and maybe the 90% should be, fewer days. Maybe if you're at 90%.
I think all of them, to be honest, should be probably fewer days, is from what I'm hearing from staff. Just because, again, some of this has to do with the reserves in the tank, and when you just keep pulling down on that.
Well, you can't do one, you probably can't do three, because then you'll just be
Right.
on again, off again, issuing emergencies
No, but
every other day. But,
yeah.
I guess that's why I said if we back down a little bit and go 7 out of 10, hopefully we won't have more than another one of these stretches before we get the new line online in the spring.
Right.
And we will avoid this in the future. And I want to say this, if anybody's watching today, and for the public, is that, I drove down 33, I went down 33, made a point to go down 33 today, and there's a lot of work going on out there at our water treatment plant, and you already see the ductile pipe laid out beside the road to bring, it's a massive, massive pipe, and that's, so we're trying. It just takes time to get all that in the ground.
And again, I've had people ask me, Councilman Burrell, why does it take so long? Well, unfortunately, the world we live in today, you're at the mercy of contractors, you're at the mercy of supply chains, and it's gotten better. We all know that in the past probably 6 months it's gotten better. But again, we had to wait on some of that ductile pipe. With contractors, again, you have issues getting the contractors, but I do believe that we are doing the things we need to do to prepare ourselves for the future and the growth that we've seen. Again, we'll have the capacity to bring in 2 million more gallons, and then again, I think within another 18 months that with the council's approval, hopefully we'll have another site, put another well, and already have that well underway within the next 18 months.
Y'all think a 5 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 or
I was thinking
6
7 out of 10 or 5 out of 7. One of those two, because, obviously we
You could do either or.
probably should have already been in this phase, but
You could do it, you could do both.
something so that a one-day anomaly doesn't start a reset.
Right, and that's what's happening. Again,
Right.
we're seeing that. And I sent y'all a spreadsheet so you can look at last year compared to this year in July and in August. So you can see, too, how rain plays a factor in that. But again, we're just not seeing the rain totals that we've seen in the past couple of years.
Marcus, let me ask you this, because we just issued an emergency, because we're in an emergency situation, can we introduce an ordinance, suspend with the rules, vote on that ordinance today, if we really felt like we had to? Is it even a possibility, Lisa? Or does that have to be advertised?
It doesn't have to be advertised, but it's supposed to be in writing.
Well, we have a meeting, a week from tonight?
Yeah, 7 days, 14.
Well, is there really any pressing need to do that today? Because
We're going
we're already
doing-
going
under
into
what
emergency,
emergency?
so we've already gotten there.
We can bring y'all some
Can we bring
suggestions.
us something on Monday
On
night that
Monday.
we could enact maybe?
We can do that.
And then obviously we've now passed a resolution allowing the mayor to move us into phase 2 and phase 3. My understanding is obviously we're going straight into phase 3 right now, which the city is going to put out some I guess, press release or statement to say what exactly that is, what is prohibited under that. But in addition, when we are able to go back into phase 2 or phase 1, we'll send something out, and obviously, we're going to do that as soon as we're possibly able.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. The other thing that, and Lisa actually brought this to my attention, phase 3, which is mandatory, which is the phase that we're going into, it does say that irrigation is strictly prohibited. The other thing it says is swimming pools can be filled by users on odd number addresses on Monday and Wednesday, even numbered addresses on Tuesday and Thursday. Lisa educated me to tell me that the reason that's in there, because I personally think, filling a pool is a luxury, it's because you will burn up your pumps. So that's the other thing, is that you have to fill above a certain line, not to burn up your pumps. So the other thing it says is washing of private vehicles is prohibited Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Car washes, most of that water is recycled, so that's not an issue. The car washes are not an issue. And then, of course, taking water from a fire hydrant is prohibited without written permission. That's all the time. You can't do that.
And Council President, I want to add one more thing. While you're drafting something, hopefully it'll be a really good draft to bring to us on Monday, and I'm kind of looking at Lisa and the mayor and Marcus all. Will you consider putting some language in there for a sunset? Like, it automatically ends if we get below a certain threshold for a certain number of days, or 90 days, or something like that, from the date of the issuance. That way, there's never a question of whether, that question came, or whether you're in an emergency, it'll speak for itself.
Okay. Council, anything else? Mayor, anything else?
Got one thing just to add while we're looking at a draft of that. Should we change the percentages at all? I mean, we're waiting until however many days in a row at 100% capacity to go to 3. Should we be looking at like 95 and 85 and 75, or are we running at that frequently, and would that have us in this kind of phase all the time?
We probably should lower the percentages. You're probably correct. Maybe it should be 75% of capacity for 7 out of 10 days or 5 out of 10 days, or maybe 80% capacity, and let that be 75, 80, and then maybe 90%. Because 90% is when you're going to get to your,
You got to give yourself a little
Yeah.
margin to say.
Well, I was
do.
going, but
I mean,
my thought is
100% like 5 or 6 days in a row. I mean, you're
yeah,
totally tapped
you're
out.
not going to replenish your
No,
supply.
you're too late in
Right.
reacting.
But I also don't want to enact this. I want to be very careful about, just not crying wolf, I guess.
right, my concern is if you reduce the amount of days and the percentage, then you run the risk of putting yourself in a perpetual state of emergency. Because I imagine for the foreseeable future, we're going to be using a large portion of what we produce and what can fit in these wells. Now, whether that's 70%, 80%, 90%, I don't know, but if we are allowing, 5 days of 75% to put us in the, in the phase 1, we might not ever get out of that.
Right. The phase 1 might want to be a little bit higher, like the 7 consecutive. I didn't have a problem with phase 1 being 7 consecutive, but I still think it's probably 7 out of 10, and the next one could be, I think phase 3 could still be maybe 95%. I feel like it's got to be some. Jimmy's got a point. There's some margin on that.
Needs to be a little bit below the 100%.
No, yeah, I don't disagree with that. But even that though, what's in that ordinance, is a guideline, because we're still, even right now, I don't think we've met this, or maybe we have. Have we met the 100% use for however many days is currently
That's what I was
required?
going back to look at, to see where we were.
I think we're a day or two shy of that.
So we're if that's a guideline for what we use, but also with the input from our staff to know, to think ahead and to kind of get in front of some of these things, I think you're right, though. I think it makes more sense to amend the ordinance so that we're.
So since
Fine.
Sunday, the 30th, there's been basically one day that we haven't been at I mean, 80%, only one of those days was at 80% capacity. Every other day was at 90%, almost 90% capacity. And only one day since last Sunday have we not met that threshold of 80%. So, and that would have been resetting on Friday, where we used 7.8 million gallons.
So we're jumping to phase 3. We've not hit 100% in any days yet.
We hit on Monday, July 31st, we were at 8.9 million gallons. We also hit, we hit 8.9 million on Saturday and 8.5 yesterday.
I think that just kind of speaks to the point that we probably should lower the percentages because we're taking
We're
action
having
that would not be
problems.
dictated.
Yeah, we're having problems.
Right.
Recovering.
At 80% when 100% is what, yeah.
Correct.
I agree. Okay.
We'll throw some scenarios out there. We'll throw some numbers. I'll get with Daryl and with Curtis and look at it, and then we can have some discussion about it. But if y'all have an opinion or idea in the interim, please don't hesitate to share it. Make sure we get y'all a good draft.
Yeah, my hope is, just like every other time we've issued one of these water resolutions, that we've gotten torrential rain
Downpours,
the
that's
following
right.
3 days.
We
So
have.
hopefully that happens again.
I make that joke all the time. All we have to do is enact the water conservation ordinance, and then the rain just starts coming.
That's my hope.
Yes, mine too.
All right, if there's nothing else, I will adjourn the meeting.
So
Thank
moved.
y'all.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Meeting is adjourned.